then going from that and then serving the country in a different aspect and being a Guatemalan Olympic athlete for them. And then tying those two things together was definitely a massive transformational journey that I would have never expected. But now that I look back, I'm extremely grateful to have that experience because it only shapes the ability to be able to express myself in a unique way in this path that I'm now in post Olympics, post missionary life, and now into this next journey that I've embarked on.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Nourished Inside Out. Today I'm here with Charles Fernández. He is a two-time Olympian modern pentathlete, global speaker, and founder of IMPACTA, a high-performance coaching company helping ambitious people realign their mindset, identity, and purpose without losing their soul in the process. He's competed on the world stage, served in humanitarian leadership roles across 40-plus countries, and now he coaches people through the highs and lows of discipline, burnout, transformation, and identity. Thank you so much for joining us today, Charles.
Aneta, thank you so much for having me today. It's a long time waiting to be on this podcast and just super, super excited to just converse with you, share some ideas and see where that goes.
It's an honor to have you on today. So, going back to our previous conversation that we had, you were telling me a little bit about where you grew up, and you grew up in Guatemala, and you've relocated to the United States. Can you tell us about your experience growing up in Guatemala and how that shaped you to who you are today?
Yeah, pretty broad question because there's so many things that go into growing up in a third world country. I grew up to a missionary family. We grew up first in the mountains of Guatemala, in Quiche, serving as missionaries down there to those in need, people who lived in extreme poverty, and pretty much really getting to know other communities, other people, just other cultures, and being able to really see that reality and that side of life that is different to what we would maybe deem as normal. I guess, you just recently being here in the United States and me hypothetically recently being here as well, just being able to live in those two contrasts and those two worlds, being put and grown up in that environment and that culture really put a massive, I would say, perspective into what really matters in life, what's worth pursuing, who is it worth pursuing for, and living with that intentionality and being able to really reframe your mind to the reality of the world that we live around and the different experiences that we live. I mean, I can only assume that you and your perspective in life and the way that you've taken a look at different places and different experiences, you can only imagine that reframes your mind to a such different perspective of how we view the world. And I really got that really early on in my childhood, being able to be exposed to what people really in need look like when you have nothing, what that means to them, what that means to me, what that means to even the world around us, and really having that shaped my values and my beliefs, and then carrying that into the journey that I've really been living up until these past few years. It's been quite shocking, but also really fulfilling. And I can say for a fact that it's been something that's fulfilled me as a human to my core, to look back and be like, those were moments I can only thank God for experiencing, and then being able to sit here and live my life through that perspective. And so, yeah, that was really eye opening. And growing up in a third world country, and then serving the most the people who are suffering the most, and then going from that and then serving the country in a different aspect and being a Guatemalan Olympic athlete for them, and then tying those two things together was definitely a massive transformational journey that I would have never expected. But now that I look back, I'm extremely grateful to have that experience because it only shapes the ability to be able to express myself in a unique way in this path that I'm now in, post Olympics, post missionary life, and now into this next journey that I've embarked on.
There's so much to unpack there. I don't even know where to start, but it's exactly like what you were saying. It's you had the privilege to understand what life is like from the perspective of a simple life. I think when people are in the States, everything is so quick to come to the door. For example, I just moved to Florida and I see these little robots all around the streets. And if you order food delivery, a little robot with like hard eyes comes and delivers it to your door. It's the craziest thing. And I'm like, coming from Mexico, I was like, never. Like, I just walk outside, go to the Mercado. So
I'm in Louisville, Kentucky right now. We don't even see that stuff. So until it, I'm definitely gonna be shocked.
it's just like blows my mind, but it's a beautiful thing that you can experience life from a more simple perspective because when you do grow and when you do advance in your life, it helps you stay humble as you grow. So, can you take us through the journey of what it was like being an Olympic athlete, especially in a smaller country and, well, coming from a smaller country and progressing your career that way?
Yeah, I one word that comes to mind what you just described, and it's the word grounding. It's very very humbling. It's very very grounding to go from that perspective, but then to become an Olympic athlete for a country that is marginalized by corruption and violence, a small third world country that doesn't live in as much prosperity as it should, in my personal opinion. And then taking that honor of being able to represent them, and then having the perspective what I grew up with, and really trying to tie that together into using that as a motivating factor and a motivating vehicle to bring change, not just through what I do as an athlete, but also what I represent and why I represent what I do. And that for me has been really the transformational journey into going from humanitarian work with my parents and their organization to then becoming an Olympic athlete, and advocating not just for people to follow their dreams, but also to really take a step back and take a look at life from a different perspective. Not looking at the accolades, not looking at the success that is brought with being one of the best athletes in the world, but also telling people, hey guys, like this isn't everything. There's also beauties of life that give more fulfillment than being the best in the world, and that's serving other people. That's reaching a helping hand to those in need, and that looks like a lot. That looks very different in a lot of ways. And so, for me to have had the opportunity to become an Olympic athlete, was no easy task because I attached not just my career to who I was and my abilities, but also I attached my career to the purpose in which I lived that through. And that's what made my life really beautiful and made that adventure such an incredible journey because, being in the pursuit of excellence, as well as being in the pursuit of a journey of self development while maintaining myself, or trying to maintain myself as grounded as possible, sometimes contradicts each other. Sometimes you need to be the best of the best, and sometimes you need to have an attitude of saying, no, I'm better than most of these people, and not in the sense of being egotistic about it, but being confident in who you are. Because once you reach the top of the top, nobody's going to be out there giving you a helping hand. Everybody's out there for blood. Everybody's out there to prove themselves the best. And if you don't have that attitude, sometimes they're going to eat you alive. But even in that sentiment, you also look back and be like, well, no, I mean, if I'm here for a purpose, I'm here for a reason, then I'm also going to live that sentiment out. And so, really, in that balancing period, or um, in those balancing actions, I've been able to really look at life, from two different perspectives, and doing something with a purpose and with a mission for others and for a reason that is not me. And then, as well as standing up for myself and being able to be confident in who I am and what I want to achieve. And going and using those two things hand in hand, really was the emotional and psychological journey into becoming an Olympic athlete. Now, once we talk the physical journey, that's a whole different story that really, really, that really, really required a lot of sacrifice, a lot of discipline. Those words are very almost washed now. Everybody uses discipline, everybody uses sacrifice, everybody uses consistency. But when it comes to the true raw definition of what those words mean and living that out, they carry a lot of weight.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for explaining that. So, I have two questions. We can break it down one at a time. How did you separate the two from your ego and being confident? Because you talk about not being egotistic and being confident. How did you separate those two?
I think being egotistic comes with an attachment of selfishness to it. And
Hmm.
being egotistic is about what you can take, what you can receive, what benefits you above others. Whereas being confident is somebody who is able to stand their ground when it comes to advocating for their dreams and goals, but as well as also understanding that they aren't just there for themselves, they're also there for something bigger than them, whatever you attach that to. And that confidence and understanding that you have a mission, you have a goal that is above oneself is going to allow you to really act on a lot more influence and a lot more change and a lot more I guess in a lot more power in a good way, because confidence brings a sense of security to the people around you. Whereas somebody who's egocentric is going to give off an energy of, I would say, insecurity, anything that doesn't represent collaboration or teamwork. And so those two things, one motivates and one builds, and the other one's detrimental. It takes away. And those two sentiments sometimes can get people to the top. But what really matters is once you're at the top, what was that all done for? Right. And so a lot of people can live with ego and selfishness and be like, mine, 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 mine. I'm going to screw over whoever it is I want to screw over to get to where I need to be. And once I'm up there, I'll be respected and loved. Yeah, respected and loved for maybe the wrong reasons, and let alone something that might not carry itself too far down the road once you don't have anything, right? And when I say don't have anything, it's the fact of being like, everybody's in this chase. What are you chasing? What? And why are you chasing it for? And a lot of those things that I would say the majority of people chase. And when I say the majority of people, it's because that's what all we see in social media. That's all we see in the public eye, and that's fame, and that's money, and that's power, and that's influence, and that's trying to be this person for those people. I mean, once you achieve it, what else do you have to do? Nothing. And so if you have nothing, then who are you? But when somebody lives in a sense of confidence because there's something greater to strive for or to achieve, regardless of what the results are, then that's something that's going to last longer over a massive period of time. And the beauty of that is that that chase and that hunger never ends. And if anything, like if you don't get to your goal, but you still have that same sentiment, then you pretty much leave a legacy for other people to follow, right? A legacy that people are going to be like, I want to be like that. And I want to do greater things than what that person did. Not because I envy them, but because I'm inspired by them. And so those two sentiments really go hand in hand when it comes to that constant ebb and flow and that push and pull, and not getting caught up in that rat race of trying to be the best at what you do, because there's decisions and there's things that come to mind when it comes to reaching the pinnacle of whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. And I would even say that in relationships too. It's so important to understand that, it's not me versus you, and it's not about what I can get, but what I can give and what I can bring to the table and what I can share and what I can sacrifice for. And that's the beauty of being able to take these fundamental values and principles and apply them in every area of your life, because you're always going to find yourself with the devil on your left shoulder and the angel on your right shoulder, or the angel on your right shoulder, the devil on your left shoulder. It's something that's always going to be that internal struggle between all of us. And when we have that present, we're able to really decide if we want to, what type of life and quality of life do we want to live, not just for ourselves, but for the people around us. That's a bold calling to live when it comes to this adventure of life that we're all on.
That's really well said. And I love how you explained all of that. It's what do you want to leave behind? Because at the end of the day, we're all part of a generation and the new generations are always coming. So what do we want to leave? Do we want to leave good qualities in us and pass those on, or do we want to pass on ego? Because at the end of the day, like, your ego, nobody is going to want to inherit that. But if you can build good character traits inside yourself, like staying humble, working hard, being disciplined, having a good character, those are things that people would want to look up to you. And it's exactly like what you said. Are you doing it for selfish reasons or for selfless reasons? And that's a really great way to split it up. So thank you for saying that. Earlier, you also mentioned that the physical was different than the mental training for when you were training to be an Olympian. What was the what was it like training physically, and what was it training mentally for you?
Yeah. One thing that comes to mind right now in that comparison is the grace that you have to have for yourself emotionally, and
Mm.
the discipline that you have to have for yourself physically. And those two things, those two contrasts are very, very important to really have in mind every single day when you're putting yourself through almost literal hell. That mindset and that perspective is the only way that anybody is going to achieve something great that's worthwhile pursuing. And what goes on the physical side is the discipline, understanding it's going to hurt. Pain is normal, and you should get comfortable in pain. On the physical side, and even on the emotional side to a certain extent. But even on the emotional side, you have to have grace for yourself when you don't feel good. You have to have grace for yourself when you feel like you're failing or you're not good enough. Why? Because at the end of the day, your emotional is only going to push you to perceive things in either a negative or a positive way. And so when you have that grace in a positive way, you're setting your brain up in order to perceive your situations, even if they're setbacks, in a way that you can be like, well, this might be a setback, but it's okay. I'm going to make sure this is a comeback. But the physical side of things is not so easy. Our physical side is like, no, it's okay. We don't want to do this. It's okay if we rest. It's okay if we don't go hard. And that's not true. That goes a lot for professional athletes mainly is an understanding that, like I just said, you have to get comfortable in pain physically. And once you make friends with pain, the discipline and the consistency, you're able to show up every single day and give the best of you. It might not be the very, very best because nobody's perfect. Perfection is almost unattainable. There's certain things that you can reach perfection at, but in reality, it's what matters is who shows up. And so those two contrasts on the emotional side is understanding that nobody's here, or at least I'm not here to do a bad job. I want to do a good job. So stop punishing yourself as if you are a piece of crap or you're not good enough, because in reality that's not true. You're just trying to be better. You're trying to grow. And then on the physical side, it's being like, no, like, we're here for a job. You're going to show up and you're going to do what you need to do, and you're going to get comfortable with it. Because one of the main phrases that I used when I was in those moments where I was training with no results, and I was still pursuing the Olympic dream, so I wasn't an Olympic athlete yet, is the quote of being like, you haven't come this far just to come this far. And that really motivated me to take a look at the perspective and see, like, Charles, like, you haven't grown this much only just to grow this much and then call it quits. And that is a commitment to the mission and to the objective that I set for myself. Even when I didn't see the rewards, I didn't see the results, I didn't even see the finish line in sight yet. But trusting that process and understanding that, what's hard is well worth pursuing. Really, really came out to result in a pretty good way at the end. But it is almost it's almost a path of faith in that journey of not knowing what's going to happen, but you just gotta, like they say, you gotta trust the process. But that process is grueling, and there's a lot of little things that go on in that process that you need to pay attention to in order for you to get out on the other side.
I love that. I love the way that you explain that. It's like you didn't come this far just to come this far. I'm a firm believer that God gives his toughest battles to his strongest warriors. So, like, if you're facing a tough battle, it's because there's a great victory on the other side. So, keep pushing through and keep your head up because you will make it to the other side. It's just a matter of when. And that's like the thing. It's like when we ask for something or we're working towards something, the when shouldn't concern us as much because the when will happen at the right time. Like I always hear Steve Harvey say this whenever he's talking, and he says that God will put all of your dreams and all of your prayers into a box and he'll ship it, but he won't give you the estimated time when it's going to be delivered. So just keep working, stay in faith, and at the right time you'll receive everything that you wanted. So you've also built IMPACTA out of your pain and your purpose. Can you explain to us and tell us what's the deeper mission behind it?
The deeper mission behind it is to allow humans to connect with their most inner selves and allow themselves to grow in integrity and in authenticity in the midst of the social pressure, the familiar pressure, even the personal pressure of wanting to be the best at what they do, or simply comparing themselves to the best version of everybody, right? Because that's all we see on social media, and lose themselves in that process. And so for me, in the sense, I've been able to go through this journey of being able to be someone who's looked at life in a lot of different facets, having tasted what success looks like, having tasted what being the best of the best at your art looks like, and coming on the other side of that and looking at pursuit and being very, very mindful about what that journey looks like, really inspired me to come and say, okay, Charles, well, the world is only getting faster. The world is only bringing us more distractions. The world is only keeping us in these certain social constructs that limit our ability to create and express ourselves in the most beautiful manner possible. For people who might feel trapped, for people who might feel like they're stuck, for people who might feel like they're not living that personal call to adventure, and feeling like they have more to give, is only a natural product of that inner calling that will allow us to really be free. And when I say free, it's not free of work, it's not free of pain, it's not free of hardships, but it is the freedom of expression to who we are who we're made for. And so my mission in Impacta is being able to help people optimize that way of thinking, optimize that way of feeling, with performance enhancing tools, as well as different avenues of approach, and being able for them to realize the internal motivation and the intrinsic motivation and the power that they have within themselves to create something beautiful with really what I would deem the only life we have. And that's something very hard to conceptualize, because when we live in the present, sometimes we're just so distracted that we don't realize how much time really goes through our fingers, and we don't live a life of purpose or passion or intentionality. And that has nothing to do with what you achieve. That has nothing to do with the amount of money you have. It has everything to do with the person that you're becoming in that journey. It's not about if you make it or not. It's about who you become. And that, for me, in the pursuit of greatness, which everybody's trying to become the best version of themselves. I just am someone who would love to accompany those people in that pursuit, and being able to help them maintain themselves centric and holistically, and with integrity, and be as humanistic as possible in a world that is shifting away from I guess encouraging anything that has to do with us as humans. It's more about the optimization of systems and results and money and objectives. And so, for me to be able to come and be able to leverage a little bit of that pressure and really take that take that energy and shift it into another avenue and have that person express themselves in that most unique manner. That's really what I specialize in. And I'm still exploring. I'm still growing even in my own journey. It's not saying I have all the answers, but I do believe that if you do operate on a fundamental set of principles and values, anything that comes after that is only going to be something good that you are going to attract, that you're going to grow into, and that you're going to become. And so my mission is that. How are we going to do it? Well, we'll do it. But it's definitely not linear. And that's the beauty of life. Life is not linear. There is no linear equation to any solution. There's always different paths and journeys that people are on, and if I can accompany them in that, that's what makes me the most happiest.
You threw so many wonderful gems, and like all of like your responses I'm trying to keep up, but one that you just said was, it's not the destination, it's who you become in the process. And I think that is so much more far valuable than the actual destination itself, because, the destination will come, and it kind of goes back to who you're becoming in the process. Are you becoming a selfless person, or are you becoming an egotistic person by feeling entitled? Or are you thankful and expressing gratitude for what you've been able to accomplish and share with others? So I love that. What kind of people do you typically work with? Do you continue to work with high performer athletes?
I do work with high performer athletes. I also work with athletes that are on the younger end of things, that are starting out their career, being able to try to figure out what their identity is in professional sports. How to manage that pressure from not just themselves, but I guess from the people around them too. That's something that's extremely difficult to deal with. And so being able to help accompany them on that journey, for them to have really set in stone who they are as people, not as athletes, not what they do, is one specialty that I definitely focus on, because that's extremely, extremely important, not just for the current journey that they're on to produce results, but who they are after that. You see athletes enter into drugs, depression, suicide. Most athletes in high performing stages are always going to go through these difficult identity crisis seasons. That's extremely, extremely difficult to deal with. I can tell you for a fact, I would be surprised if there's not one athlete that is completely fine and untouched by the fact of going through all those changes, of not being able to either get the gold medal that they were working their whole life for, or simply saying, you know what, I'm done with this, but I don't know who I am outside of this. But that also resonates with high performers and people in life. It has nothing to do with being like, if you're not an Olympic athlete, or you're not this big business person, or you're not successful, you're not worthy of this type of attention, or you're not worthy of not being listened to. I think everybody in us as humans, we're all equal, in that sentiment, because that's the beauty of humans. We feel, we see, we touch, we experience life in such a unique manner that no one is better than the person above you, and no one's better than the person, and they're like, no one on the bottom. You're not better than the person on the bottom. You're not better than the person on the top. And the person on the top is not better than you. And all of these things are things that I have to really take a look at and be like, well, no matter who I'm working with, there's always somebody that's going to have the potential to do amazing things. It's not about what they achieve, but who they become. And so if I can help them tap into that, and have them live an intentional life in that sense, then that's who I'm going to work with. But again, it's not about how many people I can work with. It's about what type of people I'm working with, and if they're the right person, if I'm the right person for them, if they're the right person for me. There's no one way answer on this, and I definitely don't have the answers for everybody. But I definitely feel like I have the passion to see others grow into who they really see themselves meant to grow into, and being able to encourage them in that, in a world that might tell them to become somebody that they're not. And that's super, super important for me to communicate and advocate for, through Impacta and through my work, whether it be through young athletes, retiring athletes, individuals who might not have that North Star in their life, and then being able to accompany them on that journey, and just help them set themselves on solid ground before they continue growing into that person. And you said something, you repeated something super important, which was, it's about who you're becoming in the journey. And that question is a question that I believe all of us should ask every single day before we go to bed. Are you proud of the person that you became today? Are you proud of the person that showed up today? And that has nothing to do with black or white saying, no, now I'm a bad person, but it's necessarily being able to check in with yourself every single day and being like, no, and that's okay. And yes, congratulations, I'm proud of you. And so when you're able to really look at yourself with that grace and with that encouragement, a lot of people will see a lot of change within their lives, because you're looking at life through gratitude and not through what you don't have or who you're not.
Yeah, there's so much value in that. And it's just reiterating who you're becoming. I never understood, like, I was always confused when teachers would say, make a short term goal and make a long term goal, because it seems like such a broad topic. And it is, if you think about it, it's like, okay, here's a short term goal, I'm going to achieve it. But how? What kind of person does it take to achieve that goal? You look at your long term goal, I always like to break it down. What kind of person does it take to achieve that long term goal? Whether you're a doctor, you're an athlete, you're a songwriter, what kind of person and personality do you need to become in order to get there? Because you may not be a athlete forever, and you may not be a doctor forever, but what qualities and what kind of character does that profession or that person in that career have to offer in order to get you there? So I really love that you keep reiterating on that, and you're not just pushing on, you need to do this amount of workouts, this you have to repeat this every single day, you have to chug 3 gallons of water a day. It's what's sustainable and who can you become in the process, which is such a beautiful and valuable thing. So, tying that in, what does integrity mean to you?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Integrity means
That's
the alignment
okay.
of yourself with who you believe you can become, what you want to become, and what you're doing today about it in order to move closer to that goal. And if your lifestyle, your friends, your family, the people around you, who you are, what's influencing you is either helping you towards that or taking you away from that. But again, you said something so important. It starts with me. It starts with asking me, who am I? Who am I today, in order to then be like, am I the person that I want to be today in order to be the person that I want to be tomorrow? And if you're not the person that you want to be today, then there's no way that you're going to be the person that you want to that you're striving to be. And so really that reality check starts with you. And I do believe integrity begins with honesty. There's so much power in being honest. There's so much power in being truthful. And sometimes, truth is subjective to one's opinions. It's subjective to one's reality perspective. That's a little difficult. But I would want to say that honesty is number one. How honest can you be with yourself? How honest can you be with the people around you? Do you lie? Do you cheat people? That's not living in integrity. That's living a lie, and it's so difficult to really veer away from that imposter syndrome and put yourself aside, your ego aside, your identity aside, what you attach your value to aside, and really ask yourself those hard questions. Am I living in lies, or am I being honest to myself? And if you're being honest to yourself, to the best of your knowledge, to the best of your intent, to your abilities, perfect. We're here on step one. And then step two is being honest about what is taking you away from that. What is pushing you towards that? Who is taking you away from that? Who is pushing you towards that? Who believes in you as a person and not what you do or what you have? Not everybody starts out that journey in the same spot. Not everybody starts out at square one. Sometimes there are people who get to a spot, they have the money, they have they have the accolades, and they have the status and the prestige, and then they realize, shoot, this is not what I thought this was, or this is not the integrity that I thought that, I'm not the person who I want to be. And so then you got to ask yourself your questions even at that level, and then and see, well, who's here for me rather than what I have. And so then you start going through this inventory process. And once all of those things are aligned to then your truth, then to who you are, what you believe in, and why you believe in what you believe in, then you're able to start that journey forward in honesty, because it's extremely important to have that, and live that path in integrity. And I'm not saying that's going to be perfect. Again, I repeat myself, it's not linear, but at least you know that you're giving the best of yourself today. And when you lay your head on the on your pillow, wherever it is that you sleep at night, you can be like, yes, I might not be where I'm at, and I might not be where I thought I was going to be today, but am I giving the best of myself in honesty and integrity? And if your answer is yes, then you can forge tomorrow with that confidence, knowing that you might not know what tomorrow brings, but at least you know that you're living in that honesty, in that truth. And I can only say that good things come from that. And if good things don't come from that, then there's something that's not aligned with you or with the reality around you. Uh, and that's again, it's important to be honest in that. And for me, it's tough. It's been very tough to get to that point, because I would have these moments where I would feel like I'm this person, and if I'm not this person, or I don't portray this image, then I'm not good enough, or then I'm not worthy enough, or I'm not qualified enough to be here. And sometimes I would do things in order to put a mask on and be like, no, yeah, I'm this person, or yeah, I would tell this little lie just to make other people happy and to please other people, so that the image of me wouldn't be destroyed or diminished. And I can tell you for a fact that comes from the place of being like, well, I'm an Olympic athlete, I'm Charles Fernandez, and people look up to me, and so I can't disappoint people if I say something or I do something that might not align with me, but will please them. And that's not that. I would say that really was the biggest turning point in trying to understand that I'm not here to please others if I'm lying to myself. And only good things can come from that when you are honest. It's tough, and it sucks to tell the truth, but believe me, the truth and telling the truth and being honest will take you a lot farther in that integrity of who you are than lying, being somebody that you're not. And that's very, very important to recognize, and very, very tough. And I know that I really ranted on that, but that's one of the biggest life lessons I've learned in this past year and a half in this journey, and being in this state of growth, into becoming the person that I want to be, not just for myself, but also for the people around me. Because I want to be honest. I want to live. I want to live in integrity. I want to live in truthfulness. And sometimes people won't agree with you. Sometimes people will be like, "Well, you're dumb or for doing that, or you're dumb for doing this or choosing that." Again, you're doing things just to please other people. Then I think you have a little bit of work to do when it comes to the character integrity side of things.
Absolutely. It goes back to being 1% better than who you were yesterday. All we don't have the past anymore, and we don't have the future at the moment. All we have is the present moment. So if you can rest your head on the pillow and say, I did a good job today, I did everything that I could, then that's a job well done. And that's so important, because honesty, exactly like you said it spot on. It will take you further than anything, because a light will eventually shine through. For if somebody is a friend of yours and they're always lying about things, eventually the lies are going to come and show in the light. But if you're just being honest, then there's more room to grow and to get through the fluff and to not have to deal with the lies in between, because the light will eventually shine through. It's kind of like when a flower is blooming, a seed is planted in the ground. You may not see it right away, but eventually it will see the light and it will bloom into what it actually is. And that just goes back to, are you sowing good seeds or are you sowing bad seeds? everything we do, everything we say is a seed. Is it good or is it bad? Either way, you cannot stop a flower from blooming. It's just, what are you sowing? So, what
Mm.
is something that has helped you stay anchored throughout your journey of training to be an Olympic athlete and to who you are now?
That's a great question. For me, it was about being present and understanding that I'm doing everything in my hands and my power to bring the best of myself to the table today, and that really sparks a memory inside of me. Really going into the Rio Olympics and going into the Tokyo Olympics, I knew for a fact that I can't control the results. I can't control the outcome. I can only control how I show up and the attitude that I bring to the table. And yeah, I trained a lot to for that gold medal. I trained a lot for the Olympic medal, and being honest with the training and the regimen and the results and the process, I was one of the top contenders, right? And that made me proud to say that it wasn't a dream. It was a reality in saying, I am here to win a medal. Do I know if I'm going to do it? No. So what do you do with that? Well, my only goal and objective was to say, regardless of the outcome, once I cross that finish line, I want to know that I can sit down with myself after that finish line in the stadium and say, and ask myself, did you give absolutely everything possible, regardless of what you win or regardless of what you don't win? And if the answer is yes, then you need to be proud of yourself, because that is the ultimate acceptance of reality and in the world that we live in, because we can't control the external factors. We can't control what other people think about us. We can't control whether we are successful financially or socially. There's no control of that if you're living in integrity, right? There's control of that if you're cheating. There's control of that if you take shortcuts, if you screw people over. Like that's not hard, right? It'll bite you in the ass eventually, but that's not hard. But when you live in that truthfulness and integrity, regardless of the outcome, I can tell you for a fact you're going to be more proud of yourself by answering that question than either achieving the gold medal and asking yourself that question and saying, "No, I didn't give my best. I cheated." The same applies to life. And so, what do you do with that mentality? What do you do with the circumstances that you're presented with today? How do you take advantage of the tools and the resources that are at your grasp today? Not the tools and resources that you think you don't have to become successful, because we all have the ability. We have, if you have the health, if you have the determination, if you have yourself, then you have the ability to create greatness. Again, the world is not fair, so let's accept that to begin with. Some people might have an advantage over others, whether it be financial, whether it be status, whether it be name, but it doesn't mean that you're incapable of achieving that. So what do you do with that? Well, for me, it was more about, okay, if I want to create this future, if I want to create this reality for myself, if I want to create the person that I want to become, and be content and be happy with what I'm achieving, then I need to stay present, right? And so how do you anchor yourself in that present? Well, one of the most powerful quotes that I've used for my life, and I've always said it for many, many years, is the quote of being present. And so it's to be present is to be powerful. And what that means is that when you take that perception, you take that perspective, and you take a look at yourself today, the most amount of power that you have to change your future is now. It's not tomorrow. It's not yesterday. It's now. And so when you're present, you're most powerful to change the circumstances around you, even in the most littlest things, whether that be with gratitude, whether that be with changing your perception, whether that be giving even that extra 1% that you might not have, but say, if I thought about this and I have this opportunity, then why not give all of myself today, even though might not be 100%. I might come and wake up today and be like, I only have 80% to give. Then give 80%. You might wake up and be like, I only have 2% to give. Then give that 2%, because that 2% is still 100% of what you can give. And so that perspective and that reality is only going to create this compound system, this compound reward system, that over time, eventually, those seeds, like you said, that consistency, that discipline, that intent, that mindset is only going to reap greater rewards. And again, who you become as a person, but as well as what you become to achieve, because that's how dreams are made. Dreams are made in those moments. Dreams are made in the present. Dreams are made in the 2%, and they're made in the 100%, and they're made in the 80%. They're made every single day when you show up. And that intentionality is extremely important to live by. Again, it's the perspective and the wish that you in the way that you take a look at life today, with what you have today. I'm extremely blessed and grateful to be here in this opportunity. I'm extremely blessed and grateful to have work this morning, and have the clients, and have the opportunities, and take a look at all of that and say, well, yeah, good job, Charles. Like you completed what you needed to complete today. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself a pat on the back. You might not be where you're at, where you want to be, but it's okay. You did what you need to do today. Rest. Take it easy, and so when you have that self-talk, which is extremely important to have, because 80% of our thoughts are all negative, which is a wild thing. For some reason, our brain does that to us, either to protect us, or either to veer us from pain, whether that be emotional, psychological, physical, because we're human beings that naturally love comfort. So we always have to have that in mind. But having all these little things in mind, whether you write them down, whether you keep them on your phone, whether they're posted right next to your bed, you're able to constantly remind yourself and check in with yourself and be like, no, it's okay. No, this is what I'm meant to do. No, this is what I want to achieve, and this is who I want to become. And when you create that accountability with yourself and with the systems that you created in order to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve, trust me that, well, when I say trust me, it just sparked, trust the process. That's what trust the process means, right?
Yeah, trusting the process. It's such a big one.
And to be powerful is to be present. Anything that takes your attention away from the present is only going to make you weaker, because you're distracted on things that either already happened or haven't happened. And if you're distracted on things that haven't happened, you're distracted on things that might not even exist, because who can tell the future? Nobody. Okay. So, and the past is past, right? If you're going to focus on the past, you better focus on the past just to learn, right? Not to reminiscence on past accolades or past things. Like, yes, you can look back and be like, yeah, well, that was really cool. But if you're distracted in any of those realities, that's only taking away from the attention that you have to be here today. And that has nothing to do with, are you achieving your goals? It has nothing to do with it has nothing to do with, I guess, growing. It has everything to do with the experience that you're living now. And that's
Yes.
the beauty of life, is also that's the privilege of living life, is the experience that you get to live, even in the good things and even in the bad things. The good things of experiencing life, if you're present, is feeling the wind on your skin, hearing the birds chirp in the morning, watching the sunrise, watching the sunset, um, being in pain, grieving sucks, but it's also natural to our human experience. And when you lean into that, you only lean into what's only natural to our perception and what's natural to our reality. That is also part of the human experience. And when you lean into all those experiences being present, you're able to really take in the power of being human. And that's a gift that is fleeting every single day, because we're so distracted by things that are not human, that weren't created to enhance the human experience. They were only created to distract the human experience.
Yeah, exactly. It's what can we do in the present moment? Because a lot of times people will say, I want to eat healthier. I'll do it tomorrow. But you don't have tomorrow at the moment. At the moment you have is the present moment. So what can you do in that present moment? You can't go back and change the past. You can't change the future if you're not changing the present moment, because your future is determined by the small habits that you're doing now. I think a lot of times it's so easy, and so people are so quick to jump to, oh, that goal sounds cool, but it's not doable for me, or it's not achievable. But it actually is, if you just break it down into small, tiny habits and think about what can you do in that moment. If you want to drink more water, drink an extra glass of water right now so you can start getting into the habit of drinking more water. If you want to be more active, go for an walk for an extra 10 minutes right now or sometime in the day, because that's all you have is right now. And I really love how you elaborated on all of that because it's so true. Did you ever have any issues with people pleasing anywhere in your journey?
Oh yeah, I'm a recovering people pleaser, and that that oof, that's a tough one. That's a tough one because sometimes you don't realize how much of yourself you're giving away to people who wouldn't do the same for you. Sometimes you don't realize that you're depleting the one thing that you have in the name of getting this one person to like you for whatever reason. And that's a luxury that, at least for me, was in the name of being helpful to people or serving people or being loving to people, which is a great cause. But at the same time, I've also learned that if you don't stand up for yourself, you'll if you never stand up for yourself today, you'll never learn how to stand up for yourself in the future. And that's hard. And that's extremely hard because we all are good people to a certain extent. We all want good, and sometimes we can't achieve that. But being in a world where everybody's fighting for their lives sometimes is also super important to really take a step back and being like, well, how much of myself am I giving to this cause or to these people or to this situation for the wrong reasons? And is this something that is giving back to me too? And that's super super important to emphasize. It's not about giving back in the egocentric, what can I take from this? Because you could also be a very selfish person and not a people pleaser and take and take and take and take. I think i think a life lesson or somebody really bold is going to have to stand up to you and say, hey, stop being so selfish. But being a people pleaser, you get tired, and you get to a point where if you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will. And that is it's a tough reality, but it's also something that if you know for a fact that you're giving yourself to even the own detriment of yourself, and you're not becoming the person that you want or that you desire, that's a good reality check to sit down and be like, am I running myself thin here? And if I'm running myself thin, why and for what? And yeah, that leads into everything that you do. Again, are you becoming a better person by sacrificing yourself to this cause or to this person? If the answer is no, if there's no benefit to it, then you pretty much have your answer. And if you keep on giving yourself to that situation, to that person, well, then that's your choice, right? And again, it's not that linear, it's not that black and white, because there's always these other factors that come into play when it comes to people pleasing other people. But I can sit here for my journey and be like, I love people and I will always serve people, but I've also had to take a step back and be like, Charles, all you have is yourself right now. And if you don't feed into yourself, then you won't be able to give in the future. And one of the biggest things that brings me happiness in my personal life is giving my time, giving my resources, giving my attention. Um, but again, it also comes at a cost. And if you don't have a place to take that cost from, then you're in big trouble. And so for me, it was more at the point of exhaustion and realization that I needed to stand up for myself, and standing up for myself has only brought me good things, because I now know what I deserve, and I now know what I don't deserve, and I now know what I want and what I don't want. Now, obviously, I don't have all my answers for the rest of my life, but I do have the confidence in saying we're here today, and I know what I want, and if I can go out there and get it without screwing somebody over and cutting corners and doing shortcuts, then that's a pretty honorable thing to pursue, that does align with my integrity. Giving yourself to people and not getting any benefit from it other than maybe just wanting them to accept you. that's also not living in integrity. And you'll find out eventually through exhaustion, uh, and realizing that no, I need to advocate for myself.
Yeah, that's such a big one. I think we're all recovering people pleasers at some point. I can totally relate with you where it's like you love to give and you love to give your time and to be there for other people, but it also comes with having to know boundaries as well. Because I'm somebody like myself, if I was work like yourself, if I was working at a job, yeah, I'd be if somebody asked me for my help, I would always be the helping hand. I would always volunteer to stay extra or work an extra weekend. I would always do that. But then if there's no boundaries, it leads you to that point of exhaustion and it leads you to that point of burnout that you probably might not even enjoy doing that specific activity anymore. And you don't want to get there because if you enjoy doing something, you can still enjoy it for the long term without having to burn yourself out to the point where you hate it. Charles, what does it mean for you to be nourished inside out?
Nourished inside out. I love that question because it does tie in with what we just talked about. And
Yeah.
right now in my life, to be nourished inside out is standing up for myself. There's something so refreshing in being like, no, this is what I choose. This is what I want. And I know for a fact I'm not a bad person. I know for a fact I'm not cheating anybody. I know for a fact that I'm not here to step on anybody. And back then it was like, oh, I don't want to step on them, or oh, I don't want them to think this way, or I don't want to do this wrong thing, or think this way because then they're going to think that I'm a bad person. And these are things inside of me that could be coming from attachment anxieties, that could be coming from insecurities. But now that I feel, now what makes me feel nourished inside out is standing up for myself and saying, no, I don't need to become this person just because somebody told me that I should, or that they recommend me to be. I don't need to, I don't need to give myself to this this way of living, or even this idea of living, just because it's what society tells you to do. What makes me feel nourished is understanding that I'm confident in who I am and what I want to achieve. And if I'm confident in who I am and what I want to achieve and who I want to become, and I stand up for that and I advocate for myself, there's nothing greater than saying, there's no greater feeling for me right now in saying, Charles, you are being somebody who's not just living with integrity, but it's also living with character. And one of the biggest things that I'm working on right now is my word. Now, obviously, my word is always something that I've always wanted to carry, carry for it to carry a big weight. But because I people please as well, it's like, oh yeah, I'll help you, or oh yeah, I'll do that. And sometimes because I say yes, or sometimes because I can't say no, or I can't put a boundary, I end up screwing myself over. And so that's not living in integrity. And I probably will be doing a half assed job because I'm doing something that I don't even want to do in the first place. Right. And so that, that really standing up for myself has been a big thing in my life. That's when I do that, when I say, no, I need to rest. No, I don't want to go out. No, I don't want to, or no, I can't. I guess the art of saying no
Yeah.
is it's what makes me feel most alive right now. And I've learned that because I've said no, people actually do respect me more. Because I said no, you know, people do people do honor my time and honor my efforts a lot more than with me saying yes and always being there, at the call of a whistle, right? And so yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm very excited to see where that growth has come, because it's something just recent in the past year that I've been really putting a lot of emphasis on, and I'm extremely proud of myself for that.
If I had a microphone in my hand, I would say mic drop.
Thank you. I appreciate.
Very well said. You just said it so perfectly. I have nothing to elaborate on that. Very well said. Well, before we go ahead and wrap things up, can you please tell us where can people find you? Where can they support you? And if they're interested in working with you, how can they work with you?
Absolutely. Right now, I just went through this massive social media cleanse. And so everything that was of the past and of my sports, it still exists, but it's hidden. But the only thing I have right now is my LinkedIn. And so if you want to work with me or even chat with me, I would love to just chat with you. No strings attached. Anything that might spark an interest, a conversation, an idea that you want to collaborate on. You can always reach me at my LinkedIn, which is Charles Fernandez. My face is there with a banner with an Olympic medal. And it just really, you can just always message me there. And I'm open to any sort of conversation when it comes to helping people really dive deep into who they are as humans and allow them to express themselves in creativity to become who they somewhere inside believe they're meant to become and not lose themselves in that process. Thank you so much, Aneta, for just this time, for the opportunity to share just with you and your listeners and all that you have going on with Nourished Inside Out. It's beautiful to really look at life from that refreshed perspective and understand that things aren't linear. Standing up for yourself is beautiful. Being in the present is powerful, and being able to live a life that is most authentic and lived with integrity is one worth pursuing.
That's so amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. I will have that link down in the show notes below so people can stay in touch with you. And thank you again for joining us, Charles.
Thank you, Aneta.